Hey everyone, welcome back to my review of the movie American Beauty from 1999. As I covered in part 1, American Beauty is a magnificent piece of movie making that reveals itself as an allegory, a story with two levels of understanding. The superficial take is that of an unhappily married man on the cusp of middle age who copes with his dead-end blue pill life by indulging in drugs, financial irresponsibility, and a sexual fixation on his daughter's high school friend. That's the version for the blue pill masses, and bless their pointed little heads, they are welcome to it. The deeper meaning, however, is quite different. That is the story of a male corporate pack animal who lives under the abusive control of a family matriarch. He's inspired by Ricky Fitz, a young man he meets at a party, and embarks on a personal odyssey, forging into a previously unimaginable way of life, that of pursuing happiness instead of sacrificing himself to blue pill mandates. We are informed right from the beginning that the quest is going to kill him. As we ended part 1, linked below, Lester's world was changing. He quit his job, extorting a year's salary from his employer, and we can see from his changing attitude that the revolution is coming home.
Gonna let me be, but don't come a knocking on my door. I don't wanna see your face no more. I spend my life growing old, young woman.
I don't think that song choice is accidental, if you know what I mean, and I'm sure you do. Since all of this was inspired by his chance meeting with Ricky Fitz, and because Ricky's character is deceptively important to this story, let's discuss some background on him. Ricky and his parents have just moved in next door to the Burnhams. He takes a quick interest in Jane and starts taking video of her. The video he takes initially, and I think intentionally, gives him the impression of a stalker. That guise is shattered, though, as we discover that he sees the camera as both art and a method of escape. In a poignant and revealing scene with Jane, he asks her a question.
You want to see the most beautiful thing I've ever filmed? It was one of those days where it's a minute away from snowing. And there's this electricity in the air. You can almost hear it, right? And this bag was just dancing with me. Like a little kid begging me to play with it. For 15 minutes. Yesterday I realized that there was this entire life behind things. And this incredibly benevolent force that wanted me to know that there was no reason to be afraid. Video's a poor excuse, I know. But it helps me remember. I need to remember. Sometimes there's so much beauty in the world. I feel like I can't take it. And my heart is just going to cave in.
And this iconic image from the movie is another necessary pause for reflection. As I've mentioned before, American Beauty is allegorical on so many levels. Even the title is part of that. On the superficial level, a little digging will reveal that American Beauty is a breed of roses, a particularly beautiful breed, but one that's notoriously prone to rot in the root structure. So, in the more superficial interpretation, it is easy to deduce that the title and the movie's tagline, "Look Closer," is a reference to the American dream, so beautiful at first glance but often rotten on closer inspection. And of course, the temptation is just to accept that interpretation and move on with blue pill certainty that you get the message. But I think that Alan Ball, the screenwriter, had more than that in mind with his screenplay. We see this as Ricky expresses his emotions as he peers into the beauty, not of a simple plastic bag, but of an object wrapped in the fullness of living, gently dancing on the swirling, unpredictable currents of fate, surrendering itself to being guided by the unseen forces of life. In sharing his awareness of this beauty with Jane, Ricky is showing us the real beauty implied by the title. Not a deceptive image of cut flowers festering beneath the surface, but the lasting beauty of letting go and dancing on the wind. Like Lester, Ricky is drawn to the promise of freedom. In fact, the more that is revealed about Ricky, the more we can see that his life mirrors Lester's. I mean, he's very different from Lester in that he is not near as beaten down, but he is just as trapped. Lester and Ricky both live in highly controlled environments under rigid and abusive authority. For Lester, it's Carolyn. For Ricky, it's his father, Frank Fitz, played brilliantly by Chris Cooper. If there is a truly stereotypical male figure in the story, it is Frank Fitz. He is the quintessential example of the toxic masculinity of feminist ideation. He's a Marine Corps colonel, the autocratic patriarch in his home. His wife is a zombie, having crumbled under the weight of life with a dictatorial asshole. His only sense of fathering is limited to giving orders and maintaining control. He's virulently and quite suspiciously hostile about homosexuality. He's an abusive, violent man, hypervigilant, and socially ill at ease. One of the hallmarks of dysfunctional families, sometimes headed by men like Frank, is that they are closed systems. They don't just have boundaries with the outside world, they have walls, and usually an abundance of secrets to keep behind them. Outsiders are viewed with suspicion and often as a threat. We see this demonstrated remarkably well in a scene where the neighbors on the other side of the Burnhams come to the door to welcome the Fitz to the neighborhood.
What's new in the world, Dad?
This country is going straight to hell. Are you expecting anyone?
No. No.
Once again, just as we did with the Burnhams, we get a stunning portrait of an American family as seen through a family meal. Now, it would be easy at this point to dismiss Frank Fitz as simply a feminist-inspired Hollywood stereotype of a man. And make no mistake about it, American Beauty is, in its essence, a study of masculinity as well as femininity. But as someone who grew up in a military family and who also served in the Army, I can tell you that I've met a few Frank Fitzes in my time. They are every bit as real as portrayed in the movie. They make great, easily indoctrinated soldiers, frail human beings, and lacking fathers. And while they are a decided minority of men, the presence of Frank does well to serve as a backdrop against Lester's emerging and revitalized sense of manhood. And thus we are introduced to Ricky Fitz through the lens of his family life. And this points to yet another similarity that he has with Lester. Lester is living in emotional squalor and begins to imagine a way out through his obsession with Angela. Ricky, in near unison with Lester, is finding an escape in his obsession with Jane. At this point, we can return to our storyline with another look at the Burnham family, this one very different from the last. In this dinner scene, Lester has just told Carolyn about quitting his job and about getting a new job at a fast food restaurant because it was the position of the least possible responsibility. Naturally, Carolyn is in freak-out mode, and it's obvious that she has yet to notice that the last Lester Burnham she had dinner with is not the Lester Burnham she's dining with now, until Jane comes to the table.
Sorry I'm late. No, that's quite all right, dear. Your father and I were just discussing his day at work. Why don't you tell our daughter about it, honey?
Janie, today I quit my job. And then I told my boss to go fuck himself, and then I blackmailed him for almost $60,000. Pass the asparagus.
Your father seems to think this kind of behavior is something to be proud of.
And your mother seems to prefer that I go through life like a fucking prisoner while she keeps my dick in a mason jar under the sink.
How dare you speak to me that way in front of her? And I marvel that you can be so contemptuous of me on the same day that you lose your job.
I didn't lose it. It's not like, whoops, where'd my job go? I quit. Someone pass the asparagus.
Oh, and I want to thank you for putting me under the added pressure of being the sole breadwinner now.
I already have a job.
No, don't give a second thought as to who's going to pay the mortgage. We'll just leave it all up to Carolyn. You mean you're going to take care of everything now, Carolyn? Yes, I don't mind. I really don't. You mean everything? You don't mind having the sole responsibility? Your husband feels he can just quit his job and you don't...
Will someone
Who's gonna pay
please
the factor
pass
now?
me the
Okay,
fucking
guys,
asparagus?
I'm not going to be a part of this.
Sit down! I am sick and tired of being treated like I don't exist.
Let's stop right there for just a moment of personal commentary. This is a spectacular scene with more fireworks to come, but that'll wait for a moment. That statement, I am sick and tired of being treated like I don't exist. After decades of working directly with men, studying sexual politics, and more than my share of personal relationship experience, I can only say this. Chicken choking motherfucking this. If there was ever a line in a movie that shone a light on what drives men to red pill life, it is this. Sure, feminism sucks, family courts are a Kafkaesque nightmare, the onerous double standards with women, the burden of being slave labor for a blue pill marriage, and all the other condensed crap of mainstream life play a role in the sexodus. But it is this more than anything at the core of sending men their own way. This is the real objectification in the world of the sexes. It is men struggling under the burden of the certainty that when all is said and done, they don't matter at all, under the very roof where they should matter the most. That is what sends them into the blue pill stupor that we saw afflicting Lester at the start of the story. It sends them into a dead world, void of feelings, because to men in this situation, and there are literally millions of them, feeling only means one thing: pain. It's a cross so heavy to bear that some men kill themselves to get out from underneath it. And Lester has just informed his family that his life as a blue pill slave, as a scapegoat, and as a loser is over.
You two do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, and I don't complain. Now, all I want is the same...
Oh, you don't complain? Oh, please, excuse me. I must be psychotic then. If you don't complain, what is this? Yeah, let's bring in the laugh meter and see how loud it gets on that one. You don't complain.
Don't interrupt me, honey.
Well, like I said, Lester is not playing anymore. And it would be tempting to conclude, seeing him there looking at Carolyn the same exact way he did when he told Brad Dupree that he was just an ordinary guy with nothing to lose, that his red pill conversion was nearly complete. But our hero has one last obstacle ahead of him. There is more that he must go through before the hero's journey is complete. Lester is still a man in the throes of blue pill mindlessness. Angela has awakened his libido, but not his mind. In between smoking weed, working out, buying a muscle car, and shrugging off the baggage he's carried, his every thought is governed by the neoteny that she radiates. That obsession leads him to his next confrontation with Carolyn.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
You were masturbating.
I was not.
Yes, you were.
Oh, all right, so shoot me. I was whacking off. That's right, I was choking the bishop, chafing the carrot, saying hi to my monster.
That's disgusting.
Well, excuse me, but some of us still have blood pumping through our veins.
So do I.
Really? Well, I'm the only one who seems to be doing anything about it.
Lester, I refuse to live like this. This is not a marriage.
This hasn't been a marriage for years, but you were happy as long as I kept my mouth shut. Well, guess what? I've changed, and the new me whacks off when he feels horny, because you're obviously not going to help me out in that department.
Oh, I see. You think you're the only one who's sexually frustrated.
I'm not? Well, then come on, baby. I'm ready.
Don't you mess with me, mister. I will divorce you so fast it'll make your head spin.
On what grounds? I'm not a drunk. I don't fuck other women. I don't mistreat you. I've never hit you. I don't even try to touch you since you made it so abundantly clear just how unnecessary you consider me to be. But I did support you when you got your license. And some people might think that entitles me to half of what's yours.
Oh.
So, turn out the light when you come back to bed, okay?
Once again, Lester turns the typical stacked deck of mainstream sexual politics completely on its ear, threatening to use the rigged family court system as a weapon to upend Carolyn's life. Just as he did with his employers, he throws down a trump card like it was a hand grenade with the pin half pulled. "Mess with me, and I'll take half your shit," he says, before drifting off to sleep with a grin on his face. All this is well and good, and by any credible standard, Lester is on an irreversible path toward wholeness again. Gone is the role of the corporate slave, and now, with every bit as much finality, gone are the days he will be pushed around by the petty tyranny of his wife, a domestic terrorist. But Lester is not the only one in the Burnham household undertaking a different path. In reality, they all are. But Carolyn in particular is forging into new ground, even if it's just a formality of kinds. At the same party where Lester met Ricky Fitz, a drunken Carolyn ignites a spark with Buddy Kane, a silverback real estate mogul puke who bills himself as the king of real estate. He's the object of Carolyn's envy and apparently her lust as well. She arranges to have lunch with him, where he reveals that his wife is leaving him, tossing in a commonplace observation familiar to many men.
Well, she certainly did take advantage of the lifestyle my success afforded her. Oh, wow.
And then, once he signals her with his availability, he tantalizes her with philosophy she finds highly erotic.
Call me crazy, but it is my philosophy that in order to be successful, one must project an image of success at all times.
This movie should have inspired the Academy to create a new Oscar category for Most Real Motion Picture. Anyway, I digress. The point here is to set the stage for the inevitable.
I love him!
You like getting nailed by the king?
Oh, yes, I love it! Fuck me, Your Majesty!
Who's the king?
From there, Carolyn is off on a roll of her own. Kane has taught her how to shoot, and she gets a gun. She also starts listening to self-help, self-improvement tapes, the kind most popular and palatable with women, the kind that encourages them to see themselves as victims so they can blame and punish someone on their way to supposedly not being a victim anymore. And of course, she keeps fucking Buddy Kane until happenstance lands the illicit couple right at the feet of our hero Lester while he's working at the fast food joint.
Then I guess we'll just have to be bad, won't we? I'll have a double smiley sandwich, curly fries, and a vanilla shake.
Make that two.
That'll be $7.98. Please drive up to the window. Thank you.
I think we deserve a little junk food after the workout we had this morning. Do know better.
Thank you, I'm flattered.
Smile, you're at Mr. Smiley's. Would you like to try our new beef and cheese pot pie on a stick? Just $1.99 for a limited time only?
We were just at a seminar. Buddy, this is my...
Her husband. We've met before, but something tells me you're going to remember me this time.
Whoa. You are so busted. You know, this really doesn't concern you.
Well, actually, Janine is senior drive-thru manager, so you kind of are on her turf. So, this makes sense.
Oh, Lester.
Honey, it's okay. I want you to be happy. Would you like smiley sauce with that?
Lester, just stop it.
No. You don't get to tell me what to do. Ever again.
Another pause-worthy moment in this film. Whatever vestige of hope for his marriage that Lester has allowed to dwell in the back of his mind, it has just been forced to walk the plank. Whatever power Carolyn has enjoyed at the expense of the Lester the loser of the past, it just got tossed in the rubbish with a pile of half-eaten fries. Lester the loser is dead, and so too soon will Red Pill Lester be. I'll be addressing that and a good deal more in the third and final installment of this series, American Beauty, the Red Pilling of Lester Burnham. As always, folks, I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.